Hey guys, so I'm back with a shorter and more brief update video. The reason for that is that I'm headed overseas to attend a wedding and a work trip for 2-3 weeks, so I figured I'd give a bit of an update now, as then things will make a lot more sense once I'm back. And I also want to jump online and create an update video because I got some big info to share that could impact your own tower pretty massively, which I'll cover at the end of the video. But so, in the previous update video, I shared a lot about future considerations and how I ultimately chose inner landmines as my next ultimate weapon. And I also talked in detail about my future transition from Orb Devo to Orbless, and how I overall am transitioning from an effective health build to a damage build. So I'm not going to repeat this too much in this video, and you can check out the old video for a lot more context if you haven't seen it already. Though of course I will cover it where relevant. But okay, regular update first. So for my workshop, there has been some improvements. I'm still running Orb Devo, so my workshop reflects that. Usually though, you would also have bounce chance at 0%, but this is higher because of the Astral Deliverance substat for tournaments, and it doesn't really affect my farming at all. And so I've leveled up my Rend chance and Rend multi, and this is in part because my chain lightning isn't that great with a legendary dimension core, and so my bullet damage still matters quite a bit. And then I've continued to level enemy level skips. And so both the enemy attack level skips and enemy health level skips are now 360. And as I did testing previously and concluded that starting my legend tournaments with Devo build doesn't really hurt it, I don't need to do any type of respec for tournaments. And as mentioned in my last video, I've maxed out like max recovery and I maxed out wall rebuild, and I may max out some more in the future, such as health and regen, just so I don't have to touch these at all anymore. But I feel like there's more important stuff to spend on first. And in terms of my future focus, it largely remains the same as I mentioned in previous videos, that is to just continue upgrading the enemy level skips workshops and enhancements, and with some occasional dip in enhancements for coin bonus and cell bonus, and maybe some damage related enhancements, and as mentioned that I may max out health and regen and so forth. And so let me just quickly show you the stats. And as for milestones, there's nothing really new, as I did tons of progress on that previously, as I covered in the previous update video. But soon though, I may try tier 13 4500 milestone, but for now I don't want to spend time doing milestone runs. And here you can get a quick overview of my tiers and how far I've gotten in each of them. Then for ultimate weapons, first and foremost, as I shared in the previous video, I opted for inner landmines when I had a choice between this, Chronofield and Poison Swamp. And I won't go into depth about that choice here, as I covered that in the previous video. But as I got inner landmines, at first I didn't want to upgrade the inner landmines quantity and to try it first without it in tournaments, but then the gap was so big that the bosses could slide in between, so I made it to 5 and will eventually make it to 6, which is the maximum. The only reason I haven't made it to 6 immediately is because I first want to save up stones for another ultimate weapon unlock. And while saving up stones, I've just been maxing out the key inner landmine labs in the meantime, as you'll see when I get to labs. But in the previous update video, I said I was leaning towards getting smart missiles next, but that mindset has changed to instead first unlock Chronofield. First unlock Chronofield and start the lengthy Chronofield duration lab, and then start to save up for more stones again. And possibly to unlock smart missiles while I'm labbing Chronofield, but this could change depending on my stone income and other variables, where I may possibly invest stones in Chronofield first and so on. But there is at least no point to invest stones in Chronofield immediately until I can get proper duration to have it 100% uptime. So at least in that time period, I will likely be saving up. And I covered this in detail last update video, but just so it's briefly mentioned again. Right now, I'm not considering any stone spends towards Econ, and also not any towards Black Hole or Golden Tower duration, as I still don't have Ancestral Galaxy Compressor for permanent Golden Tower and Black Hole and so on anyways. I'm also not investing any more stones in Chain Lightning yet, as I feel like this will have minimal impact considering that my Dimension Core is only legendary. And I'm not considering the 4th beam on Spotlight right now. If I earned a lot more stones, I would get it, but right now I think it is more feasible to first unlock all the ultimate weapons and get Golden Tower Plus going before getting the 4th Spotlight beam. And then just to show you the full stats. So for cards, last time I only needed 200 gems to max my cards, so now it is maxed. I've also said that I'm not touching card slots until I get Ancestral Galaxy Compressor and more Dimension Cores, but as you can see, I did save up a lot of gems and was considering it, and was basically letting the community decide whether I was gonna open a new card slot or modules. And the community has decided on module pulls, so that's what we will do later in the video. And these are the cards that I use for my Orb Devo. And for tournament, I would first start with cash and free upgrades, and then swap them. I would use wave skip on buses and so forth. So there's a lot of changes going on in a run on tournaments, but Orb Devo just remains still. For perks, nothing has changed, and I keep just using my Orb Devo AFK approach. I had one bizarre farm run where I only got more perk wave reduction and the coin trade-off at about wave 5,400, and many other auto picks also not being picked early. It was crazy. But I normally have all econ perks within the first 1200 waves or so. And again, just to quickly easily show, and the only reason I have the unlock a random ultimate weapon higher is just for the event, and nowadays I don't really need any of these health related ones anymore, but in the past they would be in different order depending on what I needed for survivability, and where I, for example, wouldn't have cash that high. Then for labs, the focus overall has been on damage and tournament performance. I've continued to lab speed, which I've gotten from level 58 to 62. And in terms of tournament focus, I have among others gotten the spotlight missiles from level 9 to 15, so it's just 3 more levels to max it. And sometimes I emphasize how it is often very large diminishing returns during the final levels of a certain lab, but Spotlight Missiles is one of the many exceptions, as it gets infinitely better the more levels you have in it. And another example is the defense percentage lab, which also gets infinitely better until you get it to level 23. And then for the inner landmines, I first got the stun ASAP, and then I worked on radius and rotation from level 6 to level 14, and thereafter I focused on maxing rotation so that more of my inner landmines can stun the bosses. And once the rotation finishes, I'll put radius back in again. It just felt less urgent at this point. And as I'm preparing for future orbless strategies, I've continued to work on my recovery package chance from level 12 to 15. As a reminder, I'm getting this to level 18 to prepare for permanent Black Hole and Golden Tower and orbless strategies. But since I don't have Ancestral Galaxy Compressor yet, it's not the most urgent priority. But it is also a lab that doesn't hurt to lab anyways and may help a tiny bit in tournaments. And then, when I, for example, notice that all my labs are lengthy, but that there is, say, 8 hours until the next tournament, then I sometimes squeeze in some labs that will likely just give some minor tournament boost. And for me, this time, that meant getting Super Crit Chance from level 2 to 5, Damage Meter from 25 to 26, Damage from 33 to 35, Crit Factor from 37 to 38 for the tournament, and then I just have continued the Crit Factor for a bit. And I also did some quick labs to just also help with tournaments, so that included 5 levels in Shockwave size, and to maximize second wind blast from level 1 to level 4, just so that the second wind kills 100% on screen when being triggered. Just a small help for tournaments and a quick lab to finish anyways. And then I've gotten my wall region from 14 to 15 and will get it to 16. And this is just to maximize my Orb Devo farming, while I'll be very AFK the next 2 weeks. Because my effective wall region is about 36 trillion and my wall health is 42 trillion, so it's just to make the region be the same as wall health for slightly longer farm runs. I wanted this in part because while I often can have 4x speed on everything in the labs, when I do several tournament attempts or milestone runs, then I sometimes don't have enough sell income to maintain all labs at 4x, so I wanted a bit more sell income basically, and I will get that by extending my farming runs. And in terms of the future focus, I will finish my inner landmine labs and start the chronofield duration. I will finish the spotlight missiles. I will get my lab speed to level 70 and then reassess. I will at various points include damage related labs. I will max the enemy health skip, which is just 2 more levels. I will start a shadow lab, which I haven't really started yet, and I will resume attack speed, which is level 69 at the moment. And also, while I forgot to include it on the screen, I do want to get one more perk ban. I don't really need it for Orb Devo, but I want it for Orbless in the future, and it anyways will also help my Orb Devo by being able to ban Orb, so the 6th ban is something I want soon. Then let me just scroll through my whole labs, just in case you want to pause and have a look at certain things. So for tournaments, as mentioned before, I'm transitioning to a damage build and will take some time to see the damage focus pay off. But the inner landmines that I unlocked paid off immediately, where I immediately earned my first keys. Then the next 2 tournaments I got difficult brackets but easily beat my personal best with almost 100 waves, so you can see some of these for comparison in terms of the wavelength. And importantly, with the damage transition and with the crowd control from inner landmines, now my horrible legendary dimension core finally outperforms my multiverse nexus for tournaments. For the time ahead, unless I get easy brackets, I likely won't see many keys earned, and part of the reality I have to face is that I may eventually reach a threshold where I can't progress anymore in tournaments as I don't buy the stone packs, but I don't think we're there yet. And I continue to beat people who have 20 to 30 more relics than me, which means they've played for a lot longer at least. And there's a lot of room to grow with getting a better dimension core and ancestral galaxy compressor, starting to shatter rare modules, and although it will take a long while to get there, to eventually have a decent chrono field and so on. And as I'm getting closer to getting space displacement module as ancestral, I can't wait to put that to the test with the inner landmines as well for my tournament runs. But yeah, I'm being realistic in that there won't be any super immediate gains, and in many ways feel happy that I at least consistently stay in Legends Tournament considering my starting time at the end of June 2024. And then for events, there is not much to say or cover except to say that I gotten 1 golden bot bonus, and I bought 1 set of stones for 40 medals. I've stopped buying 2 of these each event, but I think I will continue to buy at least 1, though it may depend on if I'm close to having the 1750 required for the chrono field unlock and so on. And for my medals, I've just saved this up for the next event to get the themes and background immediately. And overall, in terms of medal spending, I'm just going to continue to max out the golden bot. So here you can see my golden bot stats. And here are my themes and relic bonus. And as pointed out last video, sorry for not showing the lab speed bonus last time, as I need to scroll down for that. So there you see my lab speed bonus. Okay, and now modules. And here we have 3 major things to discuss and for me to share. And this could be possibly huge news to you depending if you're aware of this or not. But first, quickly on my own module situation. And for me, the major change has been finally getting Golden Tower bonus on my Multiverse Nexus after a gazillion rerolls, which boosted my econ about 10% or so. And other than that, I've started to shatter modules, which means that my modules are now level 119 from about 116 previously. I will try though to minimize my shattering until I have gotten levels in the shatter lab, but I have to do it at times when it fills up to the 300 module limit. And now I'm just saving up reroll shards for when I get things such as wormhole redirector, space displacer, galaxy compressor, and dimension core and so forth. And oh, I did pull 1 dimension core, yay! But I need 1 more to make it legendary plus. And I've also pulled 1 death penalty, which I now need 2 more of to make ancestral. And I gotten 1 AD, 1 NPM, 1 SD, and 1 black hole digester earlier, which you can see here. So overall, a decent haul of modules, but just not really the ones I want, or at least not enough of them. But at the end of the video, as you guys voted that I should pull modules with my gems, I will be spending the 3,700 gems on modules. But over to a thing that I really want to talk about today, and that is substat rerolling. So ever since I started pulling modules, I've been so amazed by people I've seen who just seems to get all the substats they need so freaking quickly. Whereas I'm like, wow, there's gotta just be a 1 in a billion chance for that luck to happen. And whereas I've struggled and wasted so many reroll shards, and if you followed my previous update videos, you will have seen how my substats have not been that great or nearly maxed at all. But now I know how many of them have done it, as I've learned how it's done. And I'm so annoyed and frustrated that I didn't know about this earlier, which is why I want to share it with you, as those in the know about this has a huge advantage compared to you if you didn't know. And so the basic thing is that substat rerolling is completely random and it is not seeded. So if you have 2 devices, you can roll your substat on 1 device and just quit and save over with the other device if your substats were not what you were hoping for. And then you can just rinse and repeat until you're satisfied. So I thought this was a massive thing to share. Maybe I'm the only stupid one who wasn't aware of this and thought it was seeded, but yeah. And I'm sure this type of thing gets quickly hushed down on Discord and Reddit by moderators, which I don't necessarily blame, but then it leaves a massive unfair advantage to those who know about it, which is why I feel strongly for mentioning it. And so if this is a game mechanic that is not intended, then the developers should just change it. Instead of creating a system where some sit on this knowledge and a trick to get ahead, but the rest do not. And of course, this trick also severely diminishes the value of labs such as banning module stats and reroll shards, so it's something they should fix. And these are not the type of explicit cheat or exploits such as auto-clickers, speed hacks, altered game files and so forth, but just a faulty module substat mechanism that they should fix. And to be clear, since I'm the messenger of this info, I have not done this myself to date. And my worry about that is simply that who knows if the developers want to look for a scapegoat, and so I don't want to take that risk as a content creator. And while I don't think there's anything wrong by doing this, please consider potential risk if you want to pursue this. And if the developers do indeed consider this an exploit, then they should simply fix it, as it is a faulty mechanic. And secondly, others more knowledgeable can share more about this in the comments, but supposedly this type of approach I've been told works for cards and even for pulling ultimate weapons as well, which is crazy and something I also thought was fully seeded. In a game where getting the right ultimate weapons early on, such as Golden Tower and Black Hole, matters insanely much to your progress and journey in the game, that is massive. And again, an issue where some sit on this type of knowledge, whereas the rest do not. So when I learned about all of this, I kind of feel angry, to be honest. Angry that such unfair advantage exists, angry that it is not shared or discussed by more content creators and others, and so on. It's a thing that should be fixed, but just trying to pretend it doesn't exist is not the way to do so, and just leaves so many people at a major disadvantage compared to those who know and use the trick. So that's why I feel it's the right thing to share it. Phew. And so yeah, that's my little rant and information sharing. Now you know as well if you didn't already. The way modules work in this game is already quite bad, and then having an issue where only some in the know can get an unfair advantage of an issue that should be fixed just makes it worse. Thankfully though, module pulling is actually seeded, so you can't do the substat trick to try to get other or different modules. It is predetermined. So no matter how many times you attempt, you'll pull the exact same modules, but it does enable you to see ahead. And lastly, in terms of my gameplay, nothing has really changed, and I continue to run my AFK Orb Devo. I've got my max wavelength up a few hundred waves from 8700 to 8900, and which I suspect will get past 9000 plus waves once I get my wall region to level 16. And I've increased the record run from 50 trillion to nearly 58 trillion. And I've increased the peak CPM from about 140 billion to 170 billion. And my lifetime coin is now 3.79 quadrillion. And for each run I earn about 190,000 cells. All while doing Orb Devo. And the main reason for my coin increase was the Golden Tower bonus substat that I got. But overall, the farming hasn't really changed. I start a run, upgrade, enemy attack level skips occasionally. Eventually, later in the run, I max my health and wall health and regen. And that's basically it. Nothing really else. Chain lightning and spotlight missiles and the inner landmines are all turned off. And no damage workshops are upgraded at all as well. And this is again, simply because my sync time is so low that it doesn't really matter. And it doesn't get me a longer run if I were to upgrade any of those. Your situation might be very different, where you need damage to trim your basics because maybe your cooldown are longer and so forth. So in the past I used to do a lot more micro, but I no longer need that. And the only thing I keep testing nowadays is all kinds of tower ranges. But so far, I don't really have a final conclusion of what range is best for me at this point. But so I keep trying different ones. And so yeah, that's it in terms of overall updates. I'm sorry for the rant earlier, though hopefully you'll appreciate me being transparent about such matters. Next up, I'm heading on an overseas trip, and we'll just continue to save stones for Chronofield, which should be unlocked after 2 more tournaments. Then we'll start to lab that and save up more stones. And hopefully I'll soon get my Galaxy Compressor as Ancestral so that I can start to explore orbless strategies and hopefully get some more Dimension Core to improve my tournaments. And lastly, as always, should you ever have any feedback, don't hesitate to share. But okay, that's all. Let's see what I come back with for the next update video. Thanks for watching. See you next time. And lastly, so as you guys voted on the YouTube community post that I should use my gems to pull modules, let's pull and hope for some Galaxy Compressor and Dimension Core, as I really need those two to progress effectively. Okay, here goes. Okay, here goes. Yeah, as expected. Okay. Great. Off to a great start. Off to a very great start. Ooh. Okay, okay. Well, it's not a module we want at all. But That one is okay, but again, there's only really two. That's the annoying thing with modules. There's only really two modules I want. If they were better balanced, then maybe. Space displacer, that one can be nice. If I can make it, I can make it ancestral. But yeah, that penalty can be interesting once I get one more of it, because then I can try it for some tournaments and for some milestone ones. Oof, seeing these pulls, I kind of wish I don't want another chip. Seeing all these pulls, I kind of wish I did cards, but that's at least, hopefully that means I'm closer to Dimension Core and Galaxy Compressor, even though we didn't get it today. Yep. Nice, and then beautiful Dimension Core. Ay, ay, ay.